I hope you're well. So this video is just a video about how many twin flames can you have. So as far as I know and I've seen, you can only have one twin flame at a time, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have more than one if one dies or passes over, we should prefer to say, because nobody dies really. So yeah, you can have more than one, but you can't have more than one at the same time. And I thought I'd pull a few more cards, see what they say. Let's have a look. Clarity, we've got shown underneath, so we're going to get some clarity, because everybody always wants to know, can you have more than one? And I've just done a reading for somebody who's got more than one, or has had more than one. And I've done a reading before in the past for somebody who's had more than one. So I know you can have more than one. Let's see what else they're going to say. The Lovers. So, first of all, well, really, you've got to say, well, what is a twin flame? Because there's so many different understandings of what is a twin flame out there that before you could say, can you have more than one, you'd have to know what we're talking about. So in terms of talking about twin flames, what is it? Twin flame is an energetic connection, so you are connected to each other as you are connected to source. So it's almost like that person that you're connected to is the representation of source in human form, and you're the representation of source in human form, and you're mirroring back to what is source through the relationship that you have. So you've got to start by looking at it from the inside out. So you can't look at it as in two people and call them twin flames because of anything you see on the outside going on in their lives or in their connection with each other or anything like that. You might be able to see how that materializes into physical representation of source, but you would first need to look at the interior of the human beings concerned to see how they are representing source. So what is a twin flame then? Twin flames are connected energetically. How are they connected energetically? Source, right, everybody is a projection of source. Everything that's in the physical dimension is a projection of source. So we're all source energy, we're all consciousness, walking, talking consciousness. When source projects into human form, that human form never separates from source. So everybody's always connected to source. However, most people, just to strike that, however, as far as we've always understood, up until the last few years, maybe last 3 decades, is that we incarnate for an individual experience. So we incarnate to have an experience that appears to be an individual experience. However, we are all energetically all connected to each other at all times. So we're only appearing to have an individual experience anyway. Being that once we cease to exist as a human being, we go back to being pure energy, we're all one. So when source projects into human form, it's merely a projection of the oneness into human form. So in your human being, inside your human being, you have source energy, and source energy is all one. So that's why psychics can pick up other people's energy. That's why psychics can pick up people who are supposedly ceased to exist. That's why people that are tuned into source, i.e. psychics, can pick up things about places and people they've never seen before. They can have premonitions, world premonitions. They can bet on the stock market and win, that kind of thing, because they're tapped into collective source energy. Not consciousness, where thought lies, but source energy. So in effect, inside your human body, you have source, which is everybody and everything that lives and has ever lived. So when we're talking about what are twin flames, if you bear in mind that person that's living, any individual person out there who appears to be separate, is already having an experience of source within them that's being connected to everybody and everything that's ever existed within them, that they've only got to tap into should they wish to prompt that Kundalini awakening and invite in the information that's coming from source, right? So in effect, everybody's twin flame, aren't they? Because everybody's connected as one inside the human being. So first of all, got to understand that before we can look at what is a twin flame. Let me just get this off my screen because somebody's video's just popped up. Right. So then what is a twin flame? Right, well, bearing in mind you come here for your individual experience, an experience that would have you believe from a human perspective that you have no connection to anybody beyond the physical and that you have no connection to source. So as you come into your individual human experience, you forget that you're connected to source. So you think that you're just a singular person and that you have no connection to anybody else at all energetically and no connection to God energetically. There are things like churches and religions that in the past, or spirituality or Wiccan or whatever it is, paganism, whatever, that have brought people into understanding their connection to source. Some are good, some are not. Some don't fully integrate that connection, that understanding that the connection is intrinsic within the human, and some do. So there's differences there in those as well, but we won't go into that. But initially, when you come into a human experience, it is an experience of the appearance of separation and a forgetting that you are source. So what is twin flame? Well, twin flames incarnate not to have the experience of being an individual, but to have the experience of being connected to source through each other. And it runs, I think I put in the previous video, it runs through an energetic connection that is displayed through the chakras. So if you like, chakras are only a representation of energy. They're not real. They're to help understand. They're to help understand how energy runs through the human, if you like. So they're fourth dimensional because they're like opening the Bible and reading the book of Job. I was going to say Eli, but he's not in there because they took him out of the Bible because he didn't fit with the program. But never mind about that. So, so it's an energetic connection, right? And in its journey, so as you incarnate for your individual experience, if you're twin flame, you could be understanding that you've incarnated for the experience of being connected to source in another human being at any point in your life. Some people incarnate and they know from the minute they attain conscious thought that they're connected to another human being as source, and that they would call that person the one. Right? And in that understanding that they're connected to that person as source, because what source is unconditional love. It is in fact just love, and it's love beyond any boundaries that you would have would need to be considered in a false version of love. So it's love with no boundaries, no barriers, and that's what the one is as well. So they know that there's someone that they're meant to be with, who is that representation of love, basically, who's the one that they will love above all others, and that will love them above all others because it's the love of source. So they know that, but do they know who the one is that they're connected to? They can sometimes go a long, long time without knowing who that person is. Because the connection to source is a psychic connection. So when you get information from source, you're getting it through psychic faculty, whatever that is. Sentience, audience, cognizance, voyance, doesn't matter, whatever it is. And the connection with the people that are connected through the twin flame energy is a psychic connection. Because you can't have an understanding of source in another human being without psychic connection. Because understanding source has to be psychic connection. So those two people that are connected will start to have signs and synchronicities that lead them to understand that they're connected also because it runs through all the chakras, so there's the sexual chemistry, the sexual initiation. It's like bombs going off down there in terms of sexual chemistry, right? Fireworks going off, that kind of thing, because that's energy connected through there. Similarities in upbringing, past history, family dynamics, forms of abuse they've had to go through. Similarities in that. Similarities, that would be the base chakra, the representation of all that holds. Similarities in that. Similarities in the disruption in the energy field through that abuse. So similarities, therefore, in the solar plexus. We talked about in the previous video the primal fear, primal relationship with fear, the unawakened, unaware relationship with fear. Similarities in that, how they correspond. Similarities in what they want from love and what they feel love is, because it's love from source. So love from source is a very specific type of love. It's not romantic. It's not delusional. It isn't. But they're always looking for that. So in terms of looking for twin flame, if somebody is a twin flame, they might be looking for that in other people their whole lives, trying to find that representation of love. So they might go through a lot of false twins and in trying to find that love in another that they don't find there, because what they'll find is flawed examples of love that is not unconditional, love that sets agendas, right? So it's looking for this love. So signs of being a twin flame would be looking for that love, right? Waiting for that love, wondering why that love hasn't come to you. Because people that arrive for the experience of being separate, who could just continue the experience of being separate without looking for unconditional love, without seeking out source in human form, they will settle in relationships that are not about source love. People call them karmic relationships. People on this journey call them karmic relationships. So they'll seek out those. Or they might seek out just a safe, comfortable relationship. Something that is no challenge at all. Just a safety screen. So there's that heart awareness, right, of love and what you search for in love. And then there's the throat as well. How it's representative through the throat, so representative through communication, and where communication lies, you've got where minds meet. So there's going to be similarities of thinking, thought. That includes liking the same things, disliking the same things. So the one that you're connected to that's a twin flame is going to like and dislike the same things as you, and have the same opinions and the same level of integrity, speak the same truth as you. And of course, the twin flame process is about the emergence into that energy, the energy of integrity and truthfulness. So it's the seeking of the source that is the part of the process. So the underlying knowing that that person shares the truth that you look for, even though they may display untruth, because you see what's underneath and you see not what's on the surface when it's twin flame. So everything that's represented in the chakras is a representation of what twin flame is. So it's the seeking a source in another human individual, and the arriving, the reunion is the arriving at that representation of source in another human individual. So that's what it is energetically. So it's not two people, it's an energy that's shared. And because everybody has source within them, whether they're going through a separation experience or a twin flame experience, it's always going to be about the energy. So it's quite hard to understand, I think, because people only believe what they see, right? So, and they also don't, people who are not expanded into full consciousness, full awareness, full higher consciousness, still only kind of half there maybe at what they believe. They might get a little bit of insight and then they go back down into ego and they shut down the insight because they're not quite in that full consciousness yet, full higher consciousness. In full higher consciousness, you see, you know that we're all connected as one beneath the skin. So that is really the truth that lies within the human, that we're all connected. Because that source energy never leaves the human individual, and because we're all connected energetically all the time, when a human individual ceases to exist in the physical dimension, so say you have come into this twin flame experience and you're seeking source in another, because that's the experience you're here for, and you come across somebody and they are a representation of source, and they're the representation you sought. So you see their truth, you feel their heart, you maybe also feel their pain, you come into more awareness of love, which is what source is. You become more psychic, maybe. You start to be witness to the false matrix, so you're seeing all the synchronicities that lie behind, the truth of the synchronicities, that there's no coincidence, that everything is destined in some way. So you're seeing all of that through the connection as it shows up, and it prompts you to see that because it's prompting you to see source, because that's what twin flame connection is. It's prompting you into understanding that source exists, right? So you're seeing that in one individual, and your vibration is rising, your chakras are lighting up, you're coming online, you're connecting into source through that individual. Therefore you're going through a twin flame process. You're in a twin flame process. So that's what twin flame is. It's the rising up into source that comes from within you through the connecting into source in someone else. But say that person meets with an unfortunate accident, just for an example. So I'm just throwing it out there. I've not seen it before, but I know they die sometimes. Pass over. We're not allowed to say die anymore. Pass on. So say that person passes on. Then what's going to happen with the energy that was source inside of that person? Is it going to just go back to source, become source, cease to exist at all for you on your journey? Or is it going to manifest into somebody else that's alive? Because you've got to remember, we all have source inside of us, and source is everybody or everything that's ever lived, as ever is living. So source can re-emerge as that love that is source into another human being that's alive and pick up where it left off. And then you can have another twin flame coming in. So you can have 2 twin flames, you could have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, as many as you need for you to complete your process through this lifetime of coming into awareness of source in another person. But you can only have them one at a time, because if you didn't have them one at a time, there wouldn't be a twin flame, there'd be a triplet flame, then there'd be a quadruplet flame, and that would be even more source awareness of source energy, because that would be more seeing that we are all source and finding source in more people. But that's an evolution of twin flame, isn't it? So maybe that's something that we're going to evolve. Well, it is what we're going to evolve into, because where we were in that existence, there we were in Lemuria, where we all felt each other's feelings, read each other's thoughts. We were all etherics, we were passed through each other, we weren't physically substance, we could see each other like ghostly images and pass through each other physically as well. So what we're trying to do here on Earth is have a solid experience, a third dimensional experience, and the evolution is bringing back in the being connected through everything else, all the senses and all the chakras, everybody connected, so we can have a loving and peaceful existence in form. So it's all, that's what the experiment's for, that's the divine plan. So the emergence of 3 triplet flames, quadruple flames, is surely what's going to come from this as we all merge into one in physical form. But so far, all I've seen, I haven't read for triplets. I've never read a triplet twin flame story where there's 3 on a limb. I've read 3 on a limb, but one always goes out. I've read 3 on a limb, but one's already passed over. Done that a couple of times. So, yeah. So can you have more than one twin flame? Yes, you can. You can have as many as it takes for you to recognise source during your lifetime. So that's the question answered, right? And beyond that, the question would be, why would a twin flame die? Pass over. If their job is to come here and be the embodiment of source in human form, in reflection to another person who's seeking source in human form, why would they die? Pass over. So let's have a look. Let go, letting go, 6 of Swords, moving on. Emperor, the masculine moves on. 10 of Cups, happy relationship. Chariot, masculine, feminine, to move out of the way, basically, to move out of the way. So if somebody's come here, and bearing in mind, once you're human, you've got all your human frailties going on. So you've got everything in the mind and the heart. There's a disruption to source, and all the pain and all the torment that lifetime can bring, right, in relationship. And seeking source in yourself can be really hard to find sometimes. So finding love for yourself can be really hard to find sometimes. You've got to bear in mind that everything that we're going through is an experiment. And with experiments, it's all a bit hit and miss in terms of how it's achieved. You've got to understand as well, nobody ever dies. Nobody ever dies, so there's no reason to feel sad. Everybody's always still here around us, everybody. But in terms of the experiment in finding source within another human being, the masculine, when they come into this lifetime, the one playing the masculine role in twin flames, they take on a great deal of torment through their lifetime that has to be healed, if you like, risen above. And because they are the masculine variety, which means that they operate from the ego, it's harder for them to find source inside of themselves. It's a lot more difficult than it is for the feminine version, for them to find source within themselves. They're not so in tune with their inner child. They're a lot more reliant on a feminine outside of themselves than they are of the feminine inside themselves in terms of feeling good. Sometimes they go through a whole life of not feeling good, basically. And sometimes they become so damaged and wounded that they're not able to even look for it outside of themselves in the form of a feminine. So in terms of them going out, taking an early exit, there's a number of factors that can lead to that. Because one, there's just timing. They could just have enough and decide it's time to go. We do see that, right? And then there's also, it's very hard on the human body to be constantly depressed and unhappy, and it takes its toll on the physical framework. It's not good for the body's mechanisms. So it can lead to a lot of fatigue and illness. Anxiety leads to illness. That dark energy that they come in. So, and remember, it's all an experiment. So sometimes they come in and it's like they bring themselves a lot of dark energy inside of themselves to move through. And sometimes it's just too much. One way or another, it's either physically or mentally they're taken out. And when they get taken out, somebody else will step in into that role. So it's like that other person's just activated, basically. Another person will be, it's not like a mind switch, and it's not like a heart switch, and it's not like people call it a walk-in. So the person that it becomes doesn't lose themselves. They don't suddenly become the person that's passed over. They just become the energy running through the person that's passed over. So they just start to run that energy. So it starts to fire up through all their chakras. What is the job that needs to be done of finding source? And the process begins. The process begins. And then all that comes from there is the eventual hooking up with another human that's looking for source in another human. So if you're one of these feminines who's lost their twin flame, right, you can have no fear there. What they got? Feminine vibration, joy, happy relationship, because the energy just takes form in somebody else, and the person that comes, success vibration, is going to step in from where it left off. So it's not going to be you're going to have to go through any of the stuff that you've already been through with that original twin flame. You won't have to go through any of that wounding, worry, stress. You will just pick up where you left off with a new twin flame that is going to come into that example of source. It's the fruition of the energy work that went through the previous human. So as you see, it's not people we're looking at the energy inside the person. So wherever that masculine got to in terms of wherever they were at in clearing energy, the recognition of source, and that level that you were at with them in that energetic connection, you just pick up at that level where you left off with somebody else. So if you cleared most of that dark through that journey, and that suddenly that person, because there's peripheral energy always playing a part in lifetimes, you know, people can step out in the road and not see a car coming, things like that. Peripheral energy. So say you lose that twin because of peripheral energy playing out, the next one that walks in, so in that way it is a walk-in because they're going to walk into your life, will be at the place where the last one left off. So you'll only have rebirth from a really good place. Ace of Wands, the Empress. So I know it might not be very cheerful to listen to this if you're thinking like, oh, I don't want my twin to die. I've only ever seen one twin that has actually died. The other that I read for had died a long time ago, long time ago. So it's not something that I've seen commonplace happening. You know, but it's a struggle, this journey for masculines. I know my masculine has been a really low ebbs at some points in the past where I've been worried about his sanity, his, you know, ability to sustain his life. However, he's tough nut, right? They are tough nuts, these masculines. Because they're masculine. So they've got, like, a lot of them have got very much an army mentality. And it's like, even if they are going through that, they've still got this, like, stiff upper lip reserve that's like, no, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to push through. So it's not commonplace, all right? So don't start going all fiery on it. And then understand that it's the energetic connection that is the connector. It's not the physical. So where you're at in terms of your fear and your energy is what's really how you got to be playing with it. If you can get your head around that, then you can play it like a game, because it's a game, because energy work is a game. It's understanding how energy works, and then it's just getting ahead of the game, you know. So instead of being all physically focused and worried and concerned about that physical person, and actually at the end of the game, at the end of the process, whether you've done the physical focus bit or you've not, you're going to get to a place where you just have let go anyway, and you're just like, okay, well, whoever comes in is whoever comes in then, whether it's him or someone else. And then you're like, but they've got to look like him, and they've got to sound like him, and I've got to fancy them as much as I fancy him, and then you start to create and then you start to create all that energy inside of you in a really good way. So you know you're going to get what you want anyway, right? Because you're working from a really good place as far as manifestation, And then you just let it go again, and then you just know that whatever's coming in is right for you. And if it's the one that's alive, it's the one that's alive. Because they wouldn't go if they were still alive. They'd come back in. You only get a new one if the old one goes out. That's the thing. All right? So until the old one's gone out, that's why they say you could be doing this for years. Get with the process, get with the understanding of how it's working. Because if he's still here, or she, you could be doing this for years. You know, you only get a new one if the other one goes out. All right. So I hope that's explained that a little bit. I'll put that out there. I'll come back with something new soon. If you just want to get a reading or anything, it's all in the description box below how you can contact me. Lots of love. Bye.